Welcome to another edition of Green is Good. We're so honored to have with us today Reinhold Ziegler. He's the CEO and founder of Synergy International. Welcome to Green is Good, Reinhold.
Welcome. Hello. Good day.
Good day. Hey, listen, before we get talking about your great company, Synergy International, and everything you're doing there, Reinhold, talk a little bit about your story, your journey, and how you even got there and what led up to you founding it and running this great organization.
Okay. Well, it's been quite a journey, we all started out as college students. I was very fascinated by science. I'm a sort of a science major. We went through a lot of experiences here, of course, with the everything leading up to the Vietnam War, and then on into the 1970s, 80s, 90s. I became a participant with some groups of people, engineers, scientists in California, in Berkeley, California, and we did a lot of experimentation. And through that experimentation, set up one of the first wind machine companies in the U.S. and the world. So we started doing wind energy systems, and within years, we were active as wind farm developers at Altamont Pass. Ended up doing some of the first wind farms in the world. And that gave me the picture that, wow, this is a serious enterprise. Renewable energy is really, it's here. It's at its zenith right now. And so we learned as we covered those lands with wind turbines, we saw that there were other applications that could happen to the land. So the land began to speak to us. And then, you meet all the other experts and the botanists and the permaculturists. And what came together, I think for me, was a need to put together a company that could bring together all of these different disciplines, all these different skills that people have, into almost a kind of a synergy, or there's that word, synergy, or a way to create almost like a symphony with various experts who are all looking at the same problem from their perspective. And that's what kind of drew me to be I'm sort of the ringleader, I'm sort of the quarterback of this company, but that's what we do.
And for our listeners out there that want to learn more about your great work, they can go to www.synergy.com, synergy.com. Today we're going to be talking about just part of the great work that you're doing. We're going to be talking about remediation parks on land and at sea with bioshelters. Can you start explaining what this means? What is a remediation park?
Sure. A remediation park is an eco-industrial park. It's a portion. It can be a portion of a city, or it can be on the edge of the city. And usually, we don't know what to do with our waste. We produce a tremendous amount of waste every year.
Right.
And so what we do is we sort of transport that to a little area called a landfill, and then over time we kind of bury that landfill and move on to the next one. And so we have, if you talk to mayors in the world today, their biggest headache is garbage and waste treatment. So we decided to take this on. And so as you look at the waste stream, you can separate certain things out. You can separate things like glass and metals, and those have tremendous revenues once they're collected again. And then the second area is to transform the actual resource, which is garbage, into other things like we can gasify it. We can make a gas out of it that we can run through engines, which makes electricity. We can pressurize that syngas, the synthetic gas, and then under 400 atmospheres of pressure, it becomes liquid again. And that liquid, these are liquid fuels, everything from gasoline to, jet fuels, you name it, biodiesel. So it's a process where we can recycle and reclaim all these nutrients that we call waste. And
so what are your, with regards to your organization, Synergy International, and the organizations, the sub-organizations contained therein, how are your organizations working with your remediation technologies to take waste and create new things out of them? How is that nexus and evolution going?
It's going very well. It's sort of a three-part situation, a structure. leading the charge is the International Academy of Natural Sciences, which is a 501c3 not-for-profit research and development organization out of Arizona. And so that entity compiles all the sciences, all the different knowledge that we have about what are the chemical processes required for transforming things. So that's our hub. And then additional surrounding that are consultants and other companies who provide services to then build the various facilities. So in other words, what we really are talking about here as far as the remediation park, the core of it is then a waste treatment facility where we are taking the waste and reprocessing it, sequestering certain things out of the waste stream and so on. And then the larger picture is that area that is surrounded. If you can, imagine a piece of land surrounded then by various enterprises like an incubator or two, or a company that is maybe working with plastics. So they are taking the plastics that we have pulled out of the waste stream or have made and can make new products out of it. And so that leads to job creation. That leads to small business development. And then tied to that then is the biological resources. So you can have, first of all, you can even have an energy farm as part of that remediation park. That's the idea. You can also have a wind farm. You can also have solar farms, and you can have regular farms that take advantage of the biological content that we have. It's a symphony. It's hard to describe in a few words, but that's the core of it.
Are you doing this specifically in California, or is this happening in other parts of the country?
Our key project, our pilot project, has been the Phoenix Remediation Park, which is under construction in Phoenix, Arizona. And we have been asked and are constantly challenged by other locations. Like we just did a massive design for the Philippines on what to do with the waste stream of Manila and about 10 different cities there. So it's something that is extremely relevant and hasn't been talked about very much. We have got to find a way to recycle more. There is no such thing as waste. Waste is a misallocated resource. So we have to start thinking in terms of recovery, as well as throwing things away. There is no way, it doesn't go away. So anyway.
When does your Phoenix Industrial Park open?
Oh, it'll be a couple of more years before we really are ready there. But so far what we have done is just to assemble the various gasifiers. We now have modular gasifiers that basically they're in 40-foot containers, so they're very shippable. And I'll give you an idea of 500 kilograms of this waste that we're talking about produces 500 kilowatts of energy. So not bad,
Right. And how does gasification really work? Can you explain to our listeners what's the process of gasification?
Okay, that's a really good question. Basically, when you tell people that you're burning something, they have this image in their mind of somebody burning it, and either it's in the open air or it's in a factory, and then there's these smokestacks, and all the smoke comes out from what's being burned, right? This is a different process because we are burning in an enclosed chamber, so there's no emissions. There's absolutely no emissions into the atmosphere, and so what we're doing is we're heating up to other means whatever we're trying to burn. So let's say we're trying to gasify wood, for example. We heat up the wood, and as we're heating it up, it begins to get so hot that it sets on fire, uses up the gas, it uses up the oxygen within within the enclosure, and then it goes out, uses up all the oxygen, and then what's left is this gas, and the gas basically is methane, it's carbon monoxide, it's hydrogen, things like that. And so that's what we're doing. We're using pyrolysis, or what's called in chemistry destructive distillation, to heat up the biomass or whatever we're trying to gasify. And what we are then left with is a gas that is flammable, and it can run through an engine, it can run through turbines, or it can be compressed, and made into, using the Fischer-Tropsch process, we can compress that syngas and make liquid fuels out of it.
So it's, in essence, a very clean process.
It is very clean. Again, the focus is there's no environmental emissions at all. So that's the beauty of it. I mean, you could have one of these things operating in your neighborhood, and there's no smokestack. You wouldn't even know it.
Is this where one of the areas that energy is going, gasification?
Very definitely. This is the preferred way of doing it. This system was developed in World War II after the Germans couldn't get oil from the Pelosi fields near Romania. They couldn't get any more petroleum. So then they began to work on a process where they could heat up coal and drive the gas off coal and make gasoline from coal. And so this has been adapted now to, more commercial uses of it. So that's where we are.
For our listeners who just joined us, we're honored to have today with us Reinhold Ziegler. And Reinhold's the CEO and founder of Synergy International. And to learn more about his great work, you can look it up at www.synergy.com. Talk a little bit about a couple of the great benefits of having a remediation park or a waste-to-energy plant in your community or in your state. How, just give us 2 or 3 great benefits, please, Reinhold.
The benefit is that you are, you're using waste, which is a resource, and you're getting the maximum use out of it. It's also a way to sequester some of the toxins that accumulate in the environment. We have to deal with, there's basically 2 large cycles that we are working with. And one of them is the organic cycle, so that, you can put organics back into the ecosystem, and there's a cycle for them where they will recycle into the organic matrix of our living world, our biosphere. The other one is the industrial cycle. So there are certain man-made objects and things, processes, that do not fit into the ecosystem. There's no place for dioxins. There's no place for, PVCs. It's just not part of the ecosystem. So we have to find new ways of integrating those materials back in through the industrial cycle. So that's what this really fulfills, in the best sense. Yeah.
And how does a waste-to-energy plant perform? Is it a high performance? Is it a slow process? I don't know much. What our listeners would love to hear from you. What kind of performance can we expect? Tremendous
output. Like I said, I'll give you an analogy with our container gasifiers. This is a 40-foot container that you could drop off, in a neighborhood. And what we have been interested in is trying to find a way for people to get involved in this process. So in our plans, we are basically paying for people to deliver garbage. Bring in source-separated materials to us, and then that is then fed to the gasifier. The gasifier then makes sure it's dry. It, by dry I mean it has to be about 10 to 20% moisture content, and then it's fed into the system, and so it's producing electricity, lots of electricity, and the output, the final residue of the output is charcoal or char, and there's a whole other story that we can get into on biochar, where we have now found that if we could return carbon back into the earth, it improves the performance of the soil so much more. So rather than letting the carbon go up into the atmosphere, where it's acting to create a greenhouse effect, we are capturing that carbon, and we are sequestering that carbon and then putting it back into the earth, which is where it should go. And we'll be rewarded for that too by the sequestration funds that are available for that.
And how much does one of these systems cost?
It can be as little as, say, $2.5 million for a basic, gasifier system that can be installed in the community.
Right.
I gave you the numbers again, so it's like 500 kilograms or 1,200 pounds of waste produces 500 kilowatts of energy. So, that's enough to feed several neighborhoods, that kind of power.
Wow.
And it comes from one 40-foot container. And it has to be, it's consuming 1,200 pounds an hour.
Wow.
And if you can keep feeding it that, it will produce, 500 megawatts of energy in an hour. It'll produce, if it's on for 24 hours, it's astronomical how much power this thing produces. And the residue then is charcoal, activated charcoal or biochars, things like that.
Once your Phoenix place is up, do you believe it will be used as a paradigm that many other states and cities will then look to and then follow?
Yes. There are already, lots of gasifiers in operation. We could show you one in Phoenix right now that is basically powering. It's the backup power system for a server farm, computer server farm.
Okay.
And it's very attractive in how it's been laid out. Because again, there's no smokestacks. There's no waste around it.
Right. And like the people in the Philippines, Manila, and the other cities that contacted you, do they want this system, or do they want some other form of waste to energy technology that Synergy is involved with?
It's a situation. It's actually tragic. If you take a drive around and we are choking in our own waste. We as a civilization, we are. I mean, take a look at what's happening to the oceans,
Right.
Take a look at... so there's a tremendous amount of waste. And unfortunately, in these developing countries, that waste has been put down close to the water. And so, we're looking at that and we're saying, oh, my God, we're going to have sea level rise. So we have got to get rid of this debris, which is down by the water. And then we have... we have these landfills where there are methane pockets that are inside, the organics then decompose into methane gas. And so you could have a methane explosion in the landfill. That happens quite a bit.
Oh, my gosh.
So what we're trying to do is to just, deal with this tremendous amount of waste once and for all.
Yeah.
In Manila, it's like 8,500 tons per day of waste.
Wow.
They have to put it somewhere. And, this is something that is, it's a really important aspect of our civilization, and we have to deal with it. And I think for those of us, if we're careful, we could also do very well. This leads to a lot of jobs. This leads to a lot of skills that are transferable, all over the world.
Reinhold, we're down to the last 40 seconds or so. Do you have any last thoughts for our listeners as we have to sign off now? Is there any last final thoughts you'd like to make?
I am delighted by your program, and I think we should celebrate more solutions. We should, the world could look like a terrible place. There's all kinds of bad news every day.
Right.
But I think what we really have to focus on is how can we solve this? There's got to be a way that we can solve some of these problems and make that our priority to not put it off any longer, but deal with these recurring, problems of waste, energy, food. I haven't even talked about our food solutions. I mean, there's a tremendous story. Almost another interview, John.
Okay. Perfect.
We have lots of good news.
Perfect.
So let's focus on that.
And I appreciate you, and I appreciate all your great work. For our listeners out there that want to contact Reinhold or see more of his great work at Synergy International, please go to www.synergy.com. Reinhold, thank you for all your important work with Remediation Technologies and Synergy International. You are truly living proof that green is good.
Thank you very much, John.